Welcome to the third Financially Speaking webinar. Wow, we are already on the third one, and I think we've had an amazing time so far. Before we go into today's session, we're just going to open in a word prayer. And let's pray. Father, we just want to thank you for this opportunity to meet again as your children to talk about finances, to empower each other about finances. In 3 John 1 2, your word declares that you want us to prosper in all things, in health, and even as our soul prospers. And so finances form part of this prosperity that you speak about. And so we thank you that today's engagements will contribute towards the wholeness and wellness of your people. We thank you in Jesus' name. Amen. Well, the first I'd like to say is that it's a disclaimer that says this is not an advice session, but an empowerment session, an education session. So I love, what has been happening over the past few weeks. Sundays, 5 to 6, is now for education. Baba Mbare Sundays are for lovers. Ronarere Sundays are for empowerment and education. What a vision, what a church, we belong to. And we can only thank the visionary, Bishop Musasono, and his lovely wife, Mama Gege, for this opportunity for us on a Sunday to take our glasses of water, sit and be empowered. Well, our topic for today is unlocking the power of group savings or stokvels, as others refer to them. In the last webinar session, we were looking at the psychology of savings. We had a behavioral economist and we had someone talk around investments, and they share principles of how our behavior has an impact on our savings journeys. And I'm hoping that you learned something. I mean, Refilwe was just giving us those behavioral science concepts were present bias. She was confusing us at the same time, empowering us. So we looked at tax-free investments and engaging at a personal level. Now, today we'd like to engage those who find it difficult to save alone. Not everybody is able to save alone. Some people don't have the discipline to keep up with saving, but they can thrive in a group. And to have this conversation, I'm excited to introduce my guests today. The first one is Palisa Lengolo. Palisa is a Stockfell expert, a seasoned banker, an award-winning Stockfell expert. So Akitli Sibo Mama, Stockfell expert and author of a book entitled Stockfells, How They Can Make Your Money Work For You. And I love it because, she works for the Red Bank, APSA. And as you would know from Tabo's screen, he comes from some place that is green. And so my second guest, ke Thabo Hollo from Old Mutual. He's the programs manager there. Also, a very seasoned social impact practitioner who is also an expert in financial consumer education and in financial inclusion. So, I'd like to just say welcome, Palisa and Thabo. Okay,
Good
let's get
evening.
straight. Yeah, let's get straight into it. Thabo, Old Mutual conducts the savings and investment monitor, which I really love going through because it gives us an indication of how individuals and groups are performing when it comes to savings. Can you just share a little bit about what the monitor says about savings and stokvels in the last 2 years? Are we growing or are we decreasing?
Good evening and thanks, Mewens, and good evening to the audience. And thanks for the opportunity. Firstly, the OMSEM, the All Mutual Savings and Investment Monitor, is almost like a longitudinal kind of study. It's been going on for the past 15 years. And in the 15 years, what it did is it gave us some nuggets in terms of the behavior about who, in terms of us interacting with our personal finances. It touches on a whole lot of other elements, but specifically as it relates to your question, yeah, the stock fells. What we've seen in terms of OMSEM, particularly OMSEM 2024, is we're starting to see almost a regain, a resuscitation of people's confidence in some of the elements of savings. We're starting to see the reason why people are saving as a group, particularly the issues around discipline, why people choose to save as a group or to behave as a group. So over the past 2 years, at least according to our study, the OMSEM study, is we're starting to see a whole lot of recovery from, you might be aware that we took a bit of a battering out of COVID and people were recovering and things were not as slack as they should be. But the past 2 years are starting to give us a bit of hope. At least that's the findings of OMSEM.
Sure. Okay, that's awesome. And I mean, Palisa, in your book, you also paint a picture around the power of stokvels. Just tell us a little bit about, the value of stokvel, the number of stokvels, and the impact that they have on the South African economy.
So I think most of us, we know stokvels, kapadi society, clubs, and everything in the traditional sense. And it's a 50 billion industry, and it could be more. Because 50 billion is based on what is accounted for, and we know a lot of stokvels are still informal, and they are still using a lot of cash. So it is a proven, sustainable way of saving. It's still the proudly South African way of saving. We are just seeing an evolvement that is evolving now. We're no more only seeing stokvels for groceries and burial. We're also seeing now stokvels investing, assisting each other in business, funding businesses, and buying properties and doing great things, and really contributing into the South African economy in a meaningful manner rather than from a consuming manner.
Mm. I like that because I think people who belong to the clubs or the hey ne di bitswa di clubs ke lebetse pele ne le di clubs, and then ya ba di stokvel ya di society ne ke tsamaya le society banna re tswa gale re tswa gakala ne le di society le di clubs, and then ya ba di stokvels, and now I heard a new term bare ho na le di new age stokvels, modern stokvels, and I mean, I just want to say shout out to everybody who is online who belongs to some form of stokvel, because I mean 50 billion that contributes towards the economy of South Africa. It means that we are helping shift the economy in a positive direction. Now let's talk about, and I want to say shout out to Pinky. She wrote there that she read both my book and your book, Palisa. So she's in good company today. Okay, so let's talk about the power of saving together. What does it mean to you, Tabo, and what does it mean to you, Palisa? I mean, this power of just saving together.
In your intro and opening, you mentioned that some of us might be battling issues to savings as individuals. It could be, ning ning ubele 50 rand or something, then you want to use it. How you skip a month and stuff like that. So the issues around discipline of saving, or at least consistency in terms of saving, that's the power that the stokvels carry, because it not only keeps us honest, we invariably hold each other honest, keep each other honest as stokvel members, and in a way helps us keep that consistency and discipline in terms of being able to save. The power that it carries is beyond just it's around accountability. It's about us holding each other accountable, but it also translates into the monetary effect, because the sum of the most is better than the sum of one. So the more the more we combine our resources, then it carries that much power. And my view is that it is better that way, because at least you are not just alone in terms of being able to pull the resources together, but able to also rely on and leverage those resources. And maybe we'll cover it later on. Leverage those resources to achieve more instead of just being alone.
Yeah, love it. The sum of the most is better than the sum of one. And Palisa, would you want to add something?
Definitely. I think Ritsebadi Stokvel is for social capital, which is mainly around accountability. And really, I know a lot of Stokvel members that rather not pay something else than not contribute to their Stokvel. That's how strong that accountability has been. And there's a reason why they've been sustainable for so many years. Otherwise, there would have been any other thing in Nesei Fejile by now. So it proves that it is a sustainable way of saving because of the accountability that comes with Stokvels. I'll make an example. You save Olemong and you are disciplined. It's great. South Africa has got a very low savings rate. And one of the reasons is accountability, because you save today, how got a hola, and then in 2 years, in 2 days' time, you are like, oh my goodness, I need that money. Let me do this and this. It's hard to be accountable in these economic times to yourself, and you always have that excess of getting your money. In a stokvel, you don't have that. You've got people you are accountable. When you say you are saving, you will save. Haeba ho sherishwa ka December, ho tlo sherishwa ka December. So you are almost forced to be disciplined and to get to your goal. And that is the advantage of saving with the stokvel. And another thing is that you can save by yourself and save with the stokvel if you can.
Yes.
And then you have the advantages. But we are seeing the change and the evolution that is happening. The stokvel perception is changing. The face of stokvel is changing. I'm in 6 stokvels. I don't look like a Mewa stokvel. But I mean 6 of them, and they have created 3 things for me: access, things that I would not be able to be accessible with alone. I don't have a 50,000 lying around, but I've got friends that we can 5 of us put 10,000 and get into an opportunity. That is access. Secondly, it has created affordability, things that I wouldn't be able to necessarily be able to afford by myself. If I reach out within my own network and say, guys, Hunali, this thing that we can do together that I can't afford alone, but together we can. So it has really created that access for me. For me, it shows that it is a traditional model, but it can be used for modern solutioning. So that is why I'm in so many stokvels. I'm in that travels because I love traveling. Sometimes traveling can be expensive and it's not for everyone, but I'm able to do that. I'm in a stokvel that invests because I love investing. And investing comes with risk. With a stokvel, I'm sharing the risk with others. The risk doesn't lie on me only. Number 2, I've got bigger capital that I would not necessarily have if I was alone. So, which means we have more funds to invest because we are investing together. Number 3, even the conceivable things, ke rata dintho. So, I want to lucruscent pots. I don't want to take out that big money alone. I'd rather get them in 6 months' time. So they are saver. 6 months, I'll get my points in 6 months' time. They're still the same. They are, I just didn't feel the amount. So for me, it solves for the modern things that I am literally a lived day experience for me that these stokvels are solving for me. I'm using an old traditional model to solve for today's problems and my needs.
I love it. Using an old traditional model to solve for today's, challenges. So it means that, stokvels had stagnant. They can pivot to become something else. And I love what you said, that they give you access, they give you affordability. You are able to afford things that on your own it would take you much longer to afford, and also provides you with that bigger capital. Now, there are a lot of options. Common misconceptions people have about stokvel or group savings. I mean, as you are talking, I'm also seeing the comments. One of the big things is that the stokvels, there are horror stories about stokvels where
Yeah.
people have disappeared. So maybe let's
Yes.
get into the practicalities, Sauri. How does one open a stokvel? And then what are some of the safeguards that are there, that are put in place, that protect you, the person that has joined this group? And maybe the question, and we could ke le botsa tse ngata, o ba thola kae batho ba? O ba thola phi la bantu?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe let me pick it up there, Merwin, in terms of the safeguards in particular. And I wanna start it Kahu acknowledge Auspalesa in terms of the number of stokvels that she has, right? And that to me speaks to the issues around the goals and the intention. So if your goal is traveling, for instance, then you will join a particular stokvel that talks to traveling. If your goal or your aim key investing, and out of all those goals, then it goes into issues such as the constitution, right? If we meet and our intention is to travel, right? We need to put together some sort of memorandum of understanding, some memorandum of association, some sort of constitution that speaks to that goal. So, a constitution, if our intention is to travel, say no, in case I don't know, in case there's a grocery special somewhere, we're taking that money and then rega grocery. Then you're running against the very constitution that you set yourselves. So your goal needs to talk to the constitution or your memorandum of understanding. Then from there you can formalize it even by including the instruments or products or services that are known in the financial services. For instance, a bank account. You can say, okay, we're going to collect X amount for this particular purpose, and we're going to keep it in a bank account. And as a safeguard, in that bank account, we're going to set up the rules. There's 30 of us, right? Tabo, you can't be the only person of unalin signature. Those are the safeguards, right? To say, okay, let's get 3 or 4 people that can access on behalf of the stokvel, but we'll put guardrails such as there'll be more than one person that needs to sign if there's any transaction. And if on a monthly basis, then we need a statement. Then we need to see where it's aligned up. So those are the guardrails. And yes, you're absolutely right, Mewendi. We see horror stories. We see horror stories where those guardrails are not in place. Suddenly, you're saver for investment. And suddenly, they say, but I don't understand that because Mama Wendy ke favorite ya rona, then we had to take the money. Then we run against the very guardrails that we put in place. So if you were to save yourselves, for instance, to me, the key thing is identify that objective, right? If your objective is investments, right? Put that into writing, put that as a memorandum of understanding, put that as your constitution, and it must be absolutely clear. It must not be ambiguous. What does this word mean? It must be as clear as day, knowing this is what we're saving for. Therefore, this is where we're going to put our money. If everybody must know that but if we choose or no, we want to go for any investment account, this particular bank, everybody must agree that we're putting it there. And therefore, these are the rules that will guide us in terms of interacting with that particular. In that way, then we don't see those horror stories. And then there's stories and there's a whole range of things. So I think they can be avoided, quite frankly. But then let's stick to the constitution and the objectives of why we pulling money together.
Yeah, but I think, I mean, what Tabo has said is so important, Hori. I think first and foremost, you must find people that you know and that you trust. Especially if you are starting out and you can't just join but also rather
Yeah.
find like-minded people. If ke nna le Thabo le Palesa, re qala re le three, and we then set up this stokvel. What is critical is that let's not work on trust alone. Let's make sure that everything is in writing. What are we going
Yes.
to do? Who's going to do what, when, and how? And I indeed, in the banking system, I'm telling you, if you've put in the safeguards, you will never be able to access the money alone or Lily too, because what you do, you put in those good safeguards that make sure that nobody can run
Yeah.
away with the money. So, but I think you wanted to say something, or you are
Yes,
okay.
I wanted
Mm,
to just to add for what Abdi just said around. We hear a lot of of horror stories. I mean, there's even jokes around social media now. Horror is towards the end of the year. Treasure o baleile, ha re
Hey.
tsebe le bokae, and I think because there's ongoing education that needs to happen, conversations like these to compare hore group savings in back in the day. What can we improve and to be able to safeguard ourselves? For example, when people just relied on trust. They didn't have constitutions, ba ne ba dumelana ka molomo. And they trusted each other, and it worked because it was that time. We are in different times now, and we are still using the same system. So we need to put things that talk to today. And one of them is a constitution, because that constitution is also holding everybody, binding them. This is what we have agreed on. And even if somebody ubalea le tjhelete, you've got something in writing when you go to the police. This is what we agreed on. This is what we signed, because the police will be like, how did people go with this? Then they will need that constitution that shows that you bindingly agreed to these things. What also helps the constitution is the fact you don't divide, you don't just decide to do something else, then if you decided you want to buy grocery together, you can't all of a sudden now go buy property unless you update your constitution. So it keeps you honest into the objective that you wanted to do with your thing. So it's very important to have something in writing and a signed something to save, to not just agree because you know each other and you trust each other. Secondly is using a bank account. This is so important for, especially with the solving of running away of treasuries. In a bank account, there's always more than one signatory. So what that helps with is that a person alone is not given the responsibility of looking after all your savings. It's at least 2 or 3 people. The other one initiated transaction, the other one authorizes. So it also that puts that safety, the responsibility is not a burden of one person. Thirdly, the stokvel accounts that are out there now, they actually have internet banking. There is no more needing of withdrawing cash. Le tsamaye kaofela, le tsamaya le million, le di hundreds ka cash, and really drawing crime to yourselves, because most people ba ya tseba hore who is in a stokvel and who is time for sharing. It's important to use such tools. You are EFTing each other, no cash handling. It's traceable who got paid what on the statement when you are showing the rest of your members. That way it's safe, number one, for fraud. It's safe, number two, for being robbed, because you are doing everything internally. You can cash send, e-wallet, whatever that bank you have chosen as a stokvel account is, to safely get to your goal without being a victim of crime. So it's important to educate each other as community of stokvels that, guys, let's use a stokvel account from a bank so that we are able to pay each other ka EFT, cash, and then be targeted for crime. Another thing that is really need to be educated as we evolved as people that are saving together is the fact that it's important to use the right bank account. Savela banking account ya Mewendi that gives on because Mewendi, number one, tax ya high lower because le mokenyetsa tšhelete ena e ngata, and now she's disadvantaged in that sense. Also, giving Mewendi she can literally also go away. In stokvel accounts, as I said, it's always 2 or 3 people. There are those measures that mirror the old traditional format of stokveling if in that way. Another thing, the tax burdens, hali saving personal accounting yamoto. You are actually saving in an account that is specifically for a stokvel. So those things are protected. So it's important to educate ourselves. How are we evolving? How are we keeping our money safe? But also, how are we protecting each other as members?
And just to add there, Hore, the banking apps so the same information who sign among is also when you use your phone or you use the app, the same applies. So, you
Yep.
know, the same thing that you would have done when you went in physically, it also applies on your banking app. So as you do those transfers, those EFTs, only those that are designated to be the signatories will do all those transfers, and then the digital apps help you to keep track. Everybody is there's transparency, everybody can see Urchelete Ilekomang, as Palisa is saying. So and the stokvel account, because they've been created for the stokvel, they don't attract additional fees unless if Lisely Trier with something else, right? Now let's say we've always had a group but we've always had stokvel re contribute 500 rand, and this 500 rand 250 air towards funeral, 250 air towards grocery. And I think this is so important for our people to also understand. Ke mo stokveleng se ke ntsha 250 ya funeral, ke ko B3 or whatever, ke ntsha engwe ya funeral, ke ko momentum, ke ko old mutual, ke ko kae. Kore motho thole hore motho o i-one ka month end o contributor almost like 1,000 rand towards funeral, and then o khavile the same people without understanding hore there is a limit to what insurance companies will
Yeah.
pay per person. So ke batla re thuse people who are over investing in stokvels, and rather tabo funeral le grocery to
Yeah.
pivot and start looking mobile travel, mobile investments, mobile, because I'm also seeing the questions are coming fast, think and furious around that. So, Palisa, maybe how do we pivot? How do we help people to pivot and to start opening new avenues? You can add as well, Tab.
Yes, so that is very important. Let me start with the funeral one. That also again needs a lot of education. You'd find hore batho are over covered. Gadi funeral cover. Most of the time, especially Rona, the Black community, we get too over covered with funeral covers. You'd find hore onali 3 covers. Yengwe is via the stokvel, Yengwe it's personal, Yengwe is via your children, and you didn't check who is the underwriter of that. You'd find most of the time even the underwriter ki A1. Let's say in this instance, it is such a expense because if you find hore o na le di-funeral cover tse ngata, and that you're joined via different channels, via your children, via a stokvel, and they have the same underwriter. How hlokahala motho? ha di no patala kaofela because they're going to check the underwriter and say, hi bo, ke ntho e one ena. And wena you've been paying all these years, all three of them. So it's very important as we contribute for the funeral covers to make sure we are not over covered and stretching ourselves only for one cover to pay, but where now you've been paying for 5 of them via different channels. So that education and check is very important. Ha ke kenetse via a stokvel, ke mang undercover ya this company that is doing my thingy, and yena ne ke kentseng individually, eno ke kentsweng ke marabaka le yona ke eng, so that if it's one, you remove another one. You only need one funeral cover. And in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, you need more of a life cover than a funeral cover because it covers everything else. So that is one educational element that I always like stressing. Another thing is that we know what are the necessities. Stokvels for the longest time have been used for survival, which is one of them. I'm saving to die, which is a funeral cover. For food, grocery. These things are important. Now, I mean, I got fed by a Stokvel grocery for the longest time. My mom was in a Stokvel grocery, and she would feed the whole village. But as we get these information, it's important to know that there are financial institutions that offer groups investing. The likes of all the banks, first of all, have Stokvel accounts now that you can open up and have thinking now as a Stokvel or whether you are a family group, a group of friends, a group of colleagues, a group of church members, the organizing bona, you have the liberty of going to any of the banks to open a Stokvel account. And secondly is other financial institutions outside bank accounts, like your investment companies, they allow Stokvels to invest together. That people that have organized themselves, they've got things in writing, they allow them to invest. And a lot of people don't have this information. You can invest with Ellen Gray, with Easy Equities, with almost any investment company. Allows groups to be able to invest so that you are able to do it as a group. It's no more just for only individuals. You are able to do this. That thing ya kgale ya hore ha ke na tjhelete ya ho invest. Now you can use this model that you know so well to be able to invest in listed shares, in unit trust, in everything that can make your money grow as a Stokvel. And lastly, as a Stokvel, you are able to invest in business. You are able to buy property because now there is tools in place that can formalize yourselves. Like you need to work with accountants and lawyers to put an agreement together to set up a special purpose vehicle as a Stokvel to be able to buy a property. So these things that we should educate ourselves in, because if we're not educated in them, we're gonna be forever Stokveling for funeral and grocery and lose on the opportunity of doing great things together.
Yeah.
Wow.
Did you want to add something, Thabo?
Absolutely, and I agree to a large extent. I was palesa ka issue ya funeral cover versus life cover, underwritten life cover. In as much as I acknowledge that we need a funeral cover somehow to be buried with dignity, but then let's not overdo it. Let's find other instruments to achieve long-lasting legacy. One of which ki underwritten life cover. That's just one. But then there's models internationally, Mewendi, that also show us the power of Stokvels. There was a bank in Kenya called Faulu Bank, which was formed out of Stokvels. So imagine the power of Stokvel in creating their own bank to say, if we put money aside, we can actually leverage and start moving the money around, creating development, economic development out of Cheleteri Stokvel. There's a Bangladeshi model also, Grameen Bank, where people were pulling money together as communities to grant each other credit credit, small businesses. So we gotta look at stokvels beyond just burial, beyond just groceries. And I'm not saying, please hear me out. I'm not saying grocery stokvels are not okay. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying burial societies are not okay. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying there are other things that we could be doing with the money that we are pulling together. If Rikasheva or no, what are the different objectives? Yes, risk cover is one of the things, but investment is also another goal that we should be looking at. Let's not pretend or January is fitly, but never get school. Kids are going to school. There is nothing that stops you from saving as a group at the beginning of the year, so that come January, you take advantage of those discount study school fees to say we can pay the school fees off using to it. Let's look at other things other than burial or death. I remember India, I had a boss at some point in my life, and that man Lazwane, God bless him, who used to say, "Hey, Tam, that's the man bafa before bafa." And his issue was always around, why is the funeral kavangaga? So that thing kind of got stuck in now. Yes, I'm not saying there shouldn't be the funeral covers. Don't get me wrong. I work for an insurance company. But at the same time, I'm sure there's institutions that offer in group investment. You mentioned some of them, Palesa, that can allow us as groupings to grow our wealth, to create wealth in the future, to break generational poverty by leveraging on the power of stokvel to create. Again, where purpose is not known, abuse is eminent. That's the, I think in the day, Dr. Miles Monroe, we gotta define those purpose-driven goals so that they will follow those objectives, will follow those goals to say, we're not just talking about dying, we're talking about investing, we're talking about wealth creation, we're talking about poverty eradication, we're taking that money, creating institutions out of the power. Imagine 50 billion. What we can do with 50 billion to build institutions beyond just funeral. I'm hoping that we can diversify and pivot out of just burial societies and grocery stokvels to really look at other institutions, to really look at how do we buy companies, how do we build companies, how do we create wealth beyond just the current. That's the power that the stokvel carries.
Yeah, it carries the power of generational wealth creation.
Absolutely.
You know, the book of Proverbs 13:22 talks about how, a wise man leaves an inheritance for his children and his children's children. You can only do that if you change your mindset from just being someone who just, saves for funeral only and for groceries, but start thinking generational wealth. What are the things that we're going to leave for our children and our children's children? And what is it that we will do that will also impact our communities? So there's so much power in stokvels. In my book, I talk about how if we contribute in a stokvel, ke batla ho ba practical, maybe re beya 500 rand a month. We can actually take 100 rands towards groceries, 100 rands towards funerals. We can take another 100 rands towards travel. In our church, we travel a lot. Go na le trips, the women always go out and many women don't go. So we can literally form a stokvel sa hore a woman of destiny tsamaya re mo. Ha ba re deposit ke 5,000.
Amen.
Stress Monday relo intshara first ones. So you are touching funerals, you are touching groceries, you are touching travel. You take the other maybe 100 rands or 200 libya towards investing. Now that's powerful because what you are doing is that you are meeting all your needs, the 500 rands, rather than investing for death versus investing for life. You are balancing the act. Now, Balsa, in your book, you speak about a lot of success stories, Sabat, who have built, who have invested. Can you just share some of these stories so that, especially these other financial tools, the shares, the unit trust, not many people know who as the groups we can do that. There are also other companies that allow you to trade more the ETFs and all of that. Okay, Bazalana, I really confuse you. We'll have a special session at another time. Ribu body ETFs, body wang mang mang mang. But for now, we just want to show you that there's so much more that you can do with the money. And I just want Palisa to share with us. And before I give over to Palisa, I mean, I belonged to a stokvel, libo mme ba bang ne ba sa tsebe nix ka di-investments. And when the banks were offering and other companies were saying, here is an opportunity at the BEE shares, buy shares. And I said to them, let's buy shares. They didn't know what that was, but I somehow convinced them and we bought them and we forgot about them. And I think 5, 6 years later, we got letters. Yeah, 30,000. They were so happy. Yini lento bosifake kuyo. Siyabonga. Kini shares bazalwane, So let's those of us who are in these groups who understand, let us be the catalysts that bring in that transformation, So Palisa, over to you just to share those success stories, Kadi investments. And while you are at it, I've seen quite a few questions where people are asking, are there tax implications now? Yeah, for
Thank you,
Stokvel.
Mewendi. Now the reason why I wrote a book, yeah, Stokvel, especially in a positive manner, was exactly of trying to change and educate people. The Stokvel story is not only about people running away money and being victims of crime. I mean, there has been so many horrors around Stokvels and what's been happening, and nobody acknowledges the fact that there's such the good things that Stokvels have also done. How letting something that happened in December, that somebody ran away with money or somebody got mugged, was Stokvel, it makes the headlines. But nobody ever talks about those ladies that built a student accommodations in Cape Town, those ladies that bought a franchise, those ladies that have been investing the past 10 years. We never hear those stories. So I took a decision. I'm like, I know so many positive things around Stokvels, and I need to document it, and it needs to be known because there's such bad perceptions around Stokvels. Without saying hore ha di etsahale those things, I, for one, for sure, because I research a lot, know that how much of a decrease, for example, that has happened with running away of Stokvels, of treasuries, because of the digital tools that have been put in place by financial institutions, but also because financial literacy Abatu has increased. So that has also made that decrease. But nobody speaks about that. So I have made it my personal mission to tell the success stories of people that have done great things with the Stokvel model. And I'll start with mine. Me and 6 of my friends 10 years ago decided to start a group on WhatsApp and start investing using the Easy Equity
In the
platform.
equities.
It was literally when they were starting, literally this company was starting, and we started then, and we did not the typical monthly thing. We just each one put it 10,000 into that, and we left it and forgot about it, literally. I think about beginning of this year, we're like, hey, but guys, 10 years yafela. Let's go look at our statement. How is it doing? That money has almost doubled. We never put it anything extra. We just put it 10,000, all 6 of us, which is 60,000. That money is around 130,000 now. That is the power of being patient and using Stokvel for long-term wealth and not for only short-term wealth. They gave that institution. We grew with it. The market sometimes was bad. The risk, though, was divided into six. It was not only Palesa who was creating the risk. COVID, we saw red, recover, we never withdraw, we panicked, because that's how investment is. You go for long term in it, and you become patient, and you agree together that and this is how long we want to invest, because we want to create generational wealth. Another thing that we are doing is with that is that our kids are gonna, as per our constitution, are gonna take over and continue the legacy even for their kids to invest in groups, because it's more affordable. The risk is shared. So that is one successful story. But I also want to share two more where a group of 100 people from Facebook came together to create a bank, which was called the People Stokvel CFI. They've got a banking license via the Reserve Bank. They started as a Stokvel. They are a CFI right now that literally can take deposits and do credit. They're still in a very early stages, so it's only a CFI. So those cooperatives are very possible. I think Kenya is a good example of how well they use cooperatives. Another example is a group of people that bought franchises, two of them. I was part of that Stokvel. We put money together. We bought Jimmy's. I think most of us knows Jimmy's sells chips and fish, and cash. How many people can buy a franchise alone cash? You always need collateral from the bank, credit there and there, and this and this and this. Together, the power of together was made us may be able to buy it to cash because of that group saving. We were very organized. We got accountants that helped us. We got lawyers that helped us to be able to purchase a thing as a Stokvel and have a special purpose vehicle that was able to purchase that Jimmy's, and the members become shareholders of that Jimmy's. Those the things that are possible. It's not stories, it's things we have seen, that we have experienced, that is possible with Stokvels. Another last one, the power of numbers when you come to negotiating alone versus when you are negotiating as a group. We, with my Stokvel called Sakisizo Stokvel, we've got a UJ student accommodation there. A lot of times when you come there, the price they are saying the student accommodation is 2 million. And that's what you can. It's very hard to just negotiate and say, okay, at least give me for 900,000, I'll go borrow some of it. As a Stokvel, you actually are able to negotiate better because you've got capital that is yours, not the banks, yours. And you can, and I have seen literally this happen where a property was 2 million and you only buy it by 1.5 because we had so much collateral that we already gathered via cash, because we had already, I think, 500,000 to deposit the property with, that we could literally raise in 2 months because there was a few of us and we wanted to buy that property. But besides, outside me, I've interviewed Stokvels when I was writing my book that have done amazing things, investing in shares, in ETFs, in property, in other people's businesses, in the members' businesses themselves. So it's important to take leverage of the power of the numbers, the negotiation that comes with it when you have the actual cash. The prices come down. Even when you're buying groceries, when you come le bangata, le re no, le nka re nea special pricing for this thing because re bangata. The business will agree. So it's important with that to use that leverage of the group power that comes with that, and rather than just saying, we're just a Stokvel, there's not much there is power because you are a number of people that can be able to raise money to be able to negotiate literally anything down to be able to get that. Lastly, around ETFs, and it's a long-term investment. ETFs, Gidi, exchange traded funds. There's a company called ETF SA. They literally have a stokvel product where groups of people, they customize according to lona as a group, investor for how long, how much you can afford, and they advise you professionally which ETFs to go for according to what the information they can get from the group, and you are able to get your goal. You can literally go there and say, Rebatla 500,000 in 5 years' time. Then to be able to, as a group, they will be able to advise you, okay, then you need to contribute this much. You need to wait this long so that you don't withdraw early and you will be able to reach your 500 goal. So it's important to have this information and what's possible with stokvels, and really take it further than what we can. And most of the time, what I always say is, harere leselang di society tsa di burial le grocery, as Abdi Thabo indicated. But Luena Mewend, as you are saying, literally you can start with what you have, just a matter of allocating hore ha re di etseng kaofela, mara ha se ke ra dependang ho tsenana fela. Let's invest, let's still get grocery, let's still be covered. Let's still save for short term. So that way you are meeting your needs. And it's much easier when you are doing as a group because it becomes more affordable. And unlike Haki, it's like and there's nothing wrong with doing anything alone because you can afford it. But I'm just showing, I'm just giving information, Yahore. With a group, there's a lot you can do for access and affordability.
Thank you so much, Palisa, for this wisdom that has been shared. Bahis, I think there's a lot that we can talk about, but I think we can of it. In a few minutes, ha ke batle ho le tlohela bana beso di lo etsa diphoso. Ke batla re shifte hanyane mo di-stokveleng hobane ho na le ntho that is looming mo ka di-28 tsa February ho thwa ntho ke Black Friday, and ona di-advert tsa teng se di qadile. You know, the marketing ploys are out there. Less 70%, less 50%. And I think it would be remiss of me if we don't just touch a little bit about this, just to create awareness. So be careful about this Black Friday. You know, the thing about this or buy Black Friday. Why was it Orange Friday or Pink Friday or Yellow Friday? Why must everything be black, 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 black? So I want us to just talk about this a little bit because, you know, the sales by nature, are not opportunities that we think they are, but then typically marketing strategies to get us to buy things that we don't need. And even as the groups, we can fall into it. And then decide or keep Black Friday lo rekang di stofo di mo sailing, because you know there's this thing that these adverts are able to get us, you know, to do impulse buying. Tabo, how do we avoid the 28th of February? Re ke re be calm, cool and collected. Ba etsa le ka Friday or o tsoga Saturday o feditse tšhelete kaofela. What are the strategies, Tabo, that we can help people when it comes to spending like that? Kadi Black Friday. Yo, Tabo anyamela putso ya mushapa. Palisa, do you have something that you can add? Kadi taba tsa di Black Friday.
Yes, I've done this before, Linna. Usually, it's very important as people. To buy something on Black Friday, I always say start 3 months before. Ubone price and really see and I've done this experiment myself. This thing ke batlang ke 200. Ka Black Friday, because of the advert and the psychological advertising, if it's still 200, there is nothing that is Black Friday about that. So a lot of people, they get consumed on the Black Friday because they don't know what this thing that is on sale is actually not on sale. It's just a plot or an advertising to spend more so that stores can make more money around this time of the year. So it's important to do your checks first. This thing that you really need, about shaya ka Black Friday, it's really ha e sale 200, it's only 150 kapa 180, then that is justifiable special ya hore okay ke bone ntwana ka nnete e ne le 200, but a lot of people don't do that check and they just go and spend even on things that they didn't need because they think ka nnete is on sale. So the only strategy now that I would really in my opinion really share information is that don't just go on Friday and splurge. Do your research or your check way months before the Black Friday to see what is it really sale kapa is an advertising to lure you to overspend. Otherwise, you're gonna spend things o sa di etsang. So if you haven't done it right now, go check this thing about lang reka ka Friday. Or inside keep price here, no. How fita is still the same, it's not worth it. Rather buy it any other time. How naling chelet. That's what I would say about it.
And what does this impulse buying do, Tabo, to our budget, to our savings journey? So from January, you have been good, you have been saving, you have been
Yeah.
investing, you have been doing well. And then on one Friday, you make a mistake that just erodes
The whole
everything
thing.
that you have
Absolutely.
done. Mm.
And what's amazing, Mewendi, is banks in
Kuko ska ba
particular
long
would
ne, nako ya rena se e fedile,
absolutely.
o vele o re tlhwatlhwa.
In fact, you know, see a message one fella, Mewendi, but before that, yes, it does. And I'm hoping that people don't get surprised like on the 28th of November. It's not a surprise. It'll be only next year. When you do your savings, stay disciplined, plan for it. I'm not saying you shouldn't do Black Friday, but do it consciously. These are the things that make you plan no theater. Give it a TV, give it a sofa, give it like, don't get surprised. Then you do what Auspalesa said. Check the prices. And if there was nothing that has moved, don't do it. Rather do it and then can how. That's the first thing. But the one that we see in terms of the message of Black Friday, that worries me a lot. Is we're starting to see a whole lot of online purchases, right? You will get scammed if you're not careful about Black Friday. Statistics are showing us that the number of scams start increasing towards Black Friday, including Cyber Monday. There's another one that follows Black Friday, which is Cyber Monday. Please be careful when you're doing the online purchases. Please make sure that your password.
Yeah. Thabo re sile mo na santsane a re wona ka Cyber Monday, because that's where we are educated about our passwords. O reka online, o kenya those three numbers that are called the CVV number at the back of your card that give access to everybody. And then once you've done that, go these sites, then they have access to your money, access to all your investments. Palisa, what is your last word as we close off in 2 minutes? We literally have 2 minutes. So if you can just give your last words and maybe tell us where we can get your book. Can I go take a lot, right?
Yes, so my
Yeah.
book is on Takealot, but ke le nna ke a e rekisa myself. You can contact me on via
They
Mewendi
can, yeah.
WhatsApp. I'm able to courier to anywhere in South Africa. But besides that, it's eating on Takealot and Shopify. My last words, ko hore ha se ke ra underestimate what we can do together. And how it's happening, and do things correctly, use the modern technology tools to organize ourselves, to get into opportunities, to create our wealth for ourselves and future generations. You don't need a lot of money to save and to start investing. And you can do it together to be able to have that access and affordability for your savings goals.
Yeah, and I think there's one great advice that is being shared here, that if you truly love to buy online, create a virtual card, o tla re botsa he mo masaeteng gore virtual card e create-iwa jwang, and then ke buka ya Palesa eo a na e emisitse. I just want to thank Thabo le Palesa. This was such an empowering an impactful session. And I think, we live here ready to form those groups, and to make sure that we create the wealth that we need. And with that, we just want to thank God for this opportunity, and to thank the church, and to say good night to everyone.
Thank you.